Yeah, the topic I wanted to talk about was the so-called colored South Africans. Colored people in South Africa, you're not Khoi San. You're not the Khoi San. Okay, don't fool yourself and say you have been in South Africa for for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of no, Khoi colored people in South Africa. You are not indigenous there. Okay, you're a mix. Most of your forefathers were actually Europeans. You know what I'm saying? It surprises me when I see people like who is this Mackenzie, Mr. Mackenzie. What's this name of this guy who calls himself Mackenzie? Okay, you're not native South African colored people. You're not native to South Africa. No, you're not native to South Africa. You are not indigenous there. The real Khoisan people, the Khoi people and the San people. In fact, the word Khoi itself was a made up word. There is no tribe called Khoi and there is no tribe called the San. In fact, the people who are called Khoi today were actually named by Europeans. They were first deemed by European as Bushmen. They were called Bushmen, because of their hunting and living in the bush and specializing in hunting and things like that. But people who are colored today in South Africa, so-called colored people, they're mixed race people. They're not indigenous to South Africa. And no, I see a lot of colored people pretending to be native to South Africa. This is a joke. I'm native, 100% black. Natives are only those who are 100% black, like me. And I myself, my mom is a Zulu, my father is a Xhosa. Is what I'm saying. Colored people in South Africa are not native, and you are not Khoi San people. You are not Khoi and you are not San people. In fact, let me tell you about how the San people, the San people, and the Khoi people. The Khoi people, who today people call them Khoi or Bushmen, they are not necessarily called Khoi. Their real name was Khoi people. And the people who are deemed San today, they're not necessarily San tribe. They were called the Fang. The Fang, the Fangu. They were called Amafeng long time ago. They used to be called, their tribe is Fangu. Feng, which is in the Zulu language, we used to call them Amafeng. Feng. But back in the days when Europeans came in, they couldn't explain the native language Feng. So Europeans took the word Feng, meaning Seng. They took the wrong narrative, because they were not, Europeans didn't come to the country, like to South Africa, and explain. There was no translators, so they just look at the tongue. Most of the people, the so-called Zulu, Xhosa, the Zulu, the Xhosa, and people we call today Bushmen or San or Khoi and San people, they're not necessarily called. Their tribe is not Khoi or San. It's called Khoi. Khoi, which is X, H, O, I. That's their tribe. Khoi. Thy descendants similar to the so-called Xhosa. You know what I mean? Which is my father's tribe. And my mother's tribe is Zulu. But the name Khoi, Europeans couldn't pronounce the word Khoi back in the day. So they call it Khoi. You know what I mean? But their actual tribe is Khoi. And the people who are deemed today as San people, they're not necessarily San, which is S-A-N. They're actually called the Feng. I'm a Feng. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing called San and there's nothing called Khoi. The word Khoi was actually the dancing style which they used to do with their legs. That's why Europeans called them. They used to actually call them the Hontingtons. The Hontingtons people, naming them after their dancing, leg up and down dancing legs. And Europeans named them after their dancing style. The Toi, and they named them the Khoi. But in reality, they were not. There is nothing called the Khoi. Their actual name was the Khoi. The same thing, Xhosa was another tribe. And these so-called Khoi people were actually called the Khoi. That is a tribe. But many people, people took the narrative of Europeans, which Europeans came and written down. Europeans couldn't pronounce the word Khoi, which is Xhoi. In our language, native language, they are called it the Khoi. And then Xhosa, it's XH O S A, which is the Xhosa. But people of European descendants and other people, they can't pronounce our native language in South Africa. They can't pronounce our sort of like tongue, the Xhosa, they can't pronounce those words. They can't pronounce these words, so they name them the word the Xhosa. They call it Xhosa. You see, they can't pronounce the word O. Instead of O, they use the word Ko. You see what I'm saying? So they were writing in their own version instead of knowing what is happening. The word the Bantu tribe, in fact, the word Bantu in our native language, South African Zulu language, there's nothing called the Bantu. In fact, the Bantu means Bantu. It's a general term meaning people. In Africa, we call it Abantu or Umuntu. Umuntu, Abantu. But if you write the word Bantu in our Zulu and Xhosa term, Bantu means Bantu, but Europeans use the word B for ba. But in our native language, there is no B. There is nothing called the Bantu person. Bantu is just a word meaning people. You know what I'm saying? Europeans couldn't pronounce the word Bantu. They couldn't pronounce the word Bantu. But if you write the word Bantu in English, they take it as a word Bantu. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people were actually taking words without understanding what they mean to the local people. You know what I'm saying? In Africa, if you look at the word Bantu, we call Bantu in our native language in South Africa. We call it Bantu. Muntu. You see, Muntu is one person. Bantu, more people. But in English, the word Bantu with a B, they look at it as Bantu. So they took it wrongly. They always took things wrongly. In the Zulu language, the word B is pronounced as Va, Vantu, Avantu. You see, Avantu, we put A and BA. That means Ava. But for Europeans, ABA, they call it Abba. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people don't understand the mother tongues of our local languages in the tribal of a lot of African countries. But what I wanted to talk was the issue of the so-called colored. Colored people are not Khoi San. I see a lot of colored people in South Africa, pretending to be so-called Khoi San. You're not Khoi San. You share the same skin tone. I know that the Khoi San, the modern people we call today Khoi San, have got light skin. Okay. Light skin native, the real Khoi people and the San people, their hair is very tiny. It doesn't grow long. Many people today we call the so-called colored. They're pretending to be native, but in reality you're not native. The Khoi San people don't have English surname. South Africa, if you look at South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia, people of this region, native people of this region, do not have European surnames. All colored people have got European surname. All colored people in South Africa and Namibia, they all have got European surname. Their forefathers, when Europeans came to South Africa long time ago, and in Namibia, Germans and all these other European countries coming to South Africa and Botswana, they pretty much breeded or mated. Most of that time, the mating was pretty much sort of like a rape. You know what I'm saying? Back in the days, it was just a general rape, but it was almost 300-400 years ago. And so they fathered a lot of children. Those children were given surnames from their forefathers who were not actually black. This is why you see a lot of colored people in South Africa today have got European names. They don't know. They think they're native, but colored people in South Africa, they were given their own community. Mostly their communities were close to white people, but far away from black people. Because most of the so-called colored people in South Africa are actually not descendants of black people. They were never fathered by black men. So as a result, most of the so-called colored people, they think they're native, but they're not native. There is no native colored person. Most of the colored people in South Africa are actually mixed race people. You know what I'm saying? They don't even know. Most of the so-called colored people, they don't even know who they are. So they go to the bush and try to mix with these so-called Khoi people. Khoi people are native. All Khoi people have got native name, native surname. There is no native person in South Africa with a surname called Grahamson or Brahams or Mr. Gibson or Mr. Wellingtons. There is no native Khoi San with a surname like that. Khoi people do not have European surname. Native Khoi San do not have European surname. So the colored people in South Africa, they want to go and mix with these so-called indigenous native people who Europeans actually call them Bushmen. All of those people, they've got surnames. But a lot of colored people, they want to mingle with those people and pretend as if they're one race. There is nothing called the Khoi. I heard some people calling about the Khoi land. The Khoi land. There was nothing called Khoi land. There's no Khoi land. In Africa, Zulus, Xhosa, and a lot of tribes, the Bantu, the Zulu, the Xhosa, the Sutu, the Venda, the Kalanga, the Manika, all these tribes which roam in Africa. Many people back in Africa, a lot of people in Africa didn't farm because they used cattle ranching and keeping of cattle. Cattle were used to what you call ulobola, to marry. A lot of black people they were all hunter-gatherers. They didn't build anything because many black people kept cattle. Cattle needed a lot of what they call grassland. So they lived in a certain place where there is a lot of grass to feed. And when the grass dwindles or when the grass diminishes, they moved from one region to another region. So when Europeans came in, especially come through the port of so-called Cape Town, that's where Europeans saw the people who they called the Khoi San. But the Khoi San, they're not the owners of South Africa. No, they were just a tribe which happened to be at the seaport. You know what I'm saying? The more you move inland the country, the more you meet different tribes, because all African countries have got hundreds of tribes in one country. All African tribes, So you don't meet one tribe at the seaport and then you think that is the owner of the entire land. No. That is the stupid propaganda they continuously talk nowadays. But in reality, the Khoi San people, they're not natives. They're not the only natives. The Zulus are the natives. Native means people of the land. It doesn't mean a native, it's a person you see. In Ghana, when Europeans came at the seaport of Ghana, which they named Ivory Coast, the first people they met were the Ashanti. Then they went inside Ghana and they met nearly over 22 tribes inside Ghana, just like South Africa. South Africa has got more than 14 tribes. You don't meet one person and then you think that person is the original owner. No. Different parts of Africa, different tribes of people. The only thing is that Europeans only happen to meet the ones at the port who were hunting fish and things of that nature, which is what the Khoi people were doing. But the Zulus were also doing the same thing across Africa. All black people were doing the same thing. 99% of black people were hunter-gatherers. There was no black person who had a farm in Africa. All black people were hunter-gatherers. We were cattle headers. The same thing which is done mostly Ekhaya, in the rural areas, Ekhaya. That's the thing which 99% of black people did. We had subsistence living. We kept cattle, we kept livestock, and these livestock were used to marry, what you call ugulobola. It's ugulobola. To marry a woman, we needed cattle in exchange, the bride and the groom. But a lot of Europeans didn't understand when they see Africa didn't have farms. We didn't have farms in Africa. We never had farms because the farms, Africans, we used to keep cattle. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of cattle in Africa, in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, in Botswana, in Namibia. A lot of cattle died with the tsetse flies. You saw what I'm saying? Tsetse flies were the biggest killers of animal nearly 300 years ago. And that's when a lot of black people lost moved from the countryside into the inner cities. But they were driven. When Europeans came, they brought their own cattle, but most of their cattle, when they mingled with the local cattle in Africa, they brought diseases, especially from Europe, and they mingled with African animals which were not used to European cattle, which came and mingled with African cattle, and then African cattle were infected with diseases. That's how they died, and then a lot of African people could not live, with the way they do. Then they went into the cities, which pretty much back in the days was a forced matter again. But the issue I was talking about really was the issue of colored. There's nothing called colored in South Africa. Colored people, you're not indigenous to South Africa. You're not indigenous. You're actually, don't even call it, you're not Khoi San. You see what I mean? Khoi San are natives. There is no Khoi San with the European surname. There is no Khoi San person who's called Mqini. My name is Mqini, my surname is Wellington. There's nothing like that. Unless they were fathered by a European great-great-great-great-grandfather 300 years ago. You see what I'm saying? A lot of colored people, they're actually descendants of Europeans. You see, 99% of Europeans, just like the guy who's called, who went to America, who's that Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah's father is from Sweden. And his mother is a Khoisan. You see, so he's not a native. He's just a mixed race. A lot of colored people, they're not aware. They think, if this is the thing about people born in Africa. Many people who are born in Africa, they think they're native to Africa. No. If your father, natives are those or people who lived in that, who originated from that land for hundreds and thousands of years. Not people who are fathered there. No. Being born in a country doesn't necessarily mean you're native. You know what I'm saying? To be born in a country, a woman can move pregnant from one country and give birth in a different nation. It doesn't necessarily mean the baby is going to be native. You can be a black woman can move from South Africa pregnant and give birth in Canada, in a different country. That child born in Canada is not going to be a native Canadian because you're born in Canada. No, you're still not a native of Canada. You're just born there. This is what happened to so-called colored people. Colored people, most of them have got European surname. They speak English. Native Khoisan people don't. Native people speak the Khoisan language. I see a lot of colored people saying or talking about how a lot of colored people talking about how the Khoi land or the San land. There is nothing called the Khoisan land. You see, South Africa had different tribes occupying different land. You know what I'm saying? If a land is not occupied, doesn't necessarily mean it's yours, because many people in Africa, we used to move land. We used to move cattle from different land. Cattle feed from one land, drink water in a different land. If there is drought, many people in Africa, we didn't build permanent structures because we used to follow the rain. We used to follow the rain where cattle needs to feed. We followed the rain, so we couldn't build permanent structures back long time ago. So we always follow the rain, and wherever the animals are, or hunting the animals, where animals are, we go and settle there. If the animals moved from one place to another, we follow them. So we didn't build the permanent structures. So when Europeans come in and say, "Oh, the Khoi San people are the original people," they're not the original people of South Africa. No, the Zulus, the Xhosa, the So Venda, the many tribes, all of them are native to that land. But we moved. You see, if you find a car without a person, you don't jump in a car and say automatically it's yours because no one was occupying it. It is owned by someone. Because look, if someone has got a house and go to work, the house is going to be empty. You don't just jump inside the house and say, I find this house with nobody. This is what a lot of so-called European settlers did. They say, when we came to South Africa, at the seaport of South Africa, this land was not inhabited. And no. Nobody. If you ever seen a black person going to Europe, America, or Canada and say, well, there is this vast land empty, let's just take it, it belongs to us. No. Because the place is empty doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't have an owner. Because a house is empty doesn't mean it doesn't have its owner. Because if you see a car without someone inside, you don't automatically jump inside and say it's mine, because it doesn't have a driver. There was nobody in the car, so it belongs to you. This is the stupid thing which most of the so-called whites in South Africa are saying. They say something stupid like that. You have to use reason. You see, look at Russia. 90% of Russia, almost 60% of Russia is not occupied. It's just a vast land. You just can't go to Russia and say, let's occupy this land, it belongs to us, because there's nobody living in it. No, it still has got its owner. Many people, we in Africa, we left land so that we left a lot of land so that grass regenerate, so that our wild animals like elephants, lions, buffaloes, so that they roam there, because we needed our animals to roam free. So we occupied small part of villages, but we left the vast pieces of land for animals to roam. You just don't go to a place and you see land idle and automatically you think it's yours. This is some of the dumbest thing which I see a lot of so-called Caucasian whites South Africans say. We came to South Africa, there was no land. No. The people you see there, that owners of that land, is what I'm saying. Like in the issue of the so-called colored people. Colored people are not native to South Africa. They're not. They're just descendants of Europeans, born from black women. Long time ago, a lot of black women were raped. A lot of black women, the Xhosa, the Zulu, the Khoi San people, they were raped by European settlers. And they made a lot of children. Because when European settlers came in, mostly they were males. They didn't bring their women until 30, 40 years later. 30, 40, 50 years later. By that time, they'd mingled and raped a lot of local black African females. And so they produced people we call mixed race or colored people. And they give them their surname. This is why a lot of colored people in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, all of them have got European DNA. All colored people, if you look at a colored person, they've got European DNA. All the coloreds, they've got European DNA. And they've got European surnames. Indigenous blacks don't have European surname. They've got they've got a name. A name can be any of anybody. They can have a name. You could be called Julius, but if you look at their surnames, their surname is native. Someone could be Julius Mpofu, or Julius Stole, or Julius Ngwenya, or Julius Mpofu, or Julius Stole. You see, all these are native surnames. Colored people, they don't have native surname. All colored people in South Africa have got European surname. They're not natives there. They just fool themselves and thinking, oh, we look lighter and the Khoisan look lighter, maybe we are natives. You're not native, you're just a mixed race child. You see what I'm saying? That's the issue I want to talk. That's colored people, don't fool yourself. Colored people in South Africa, don't fool yourself. You're not native. You're colored. You're mixed. You're mixed race. You're so-called biracials. You know what I'm saying? You're not native. Sometimes if I see you calling yourself native, it's calling yourself, calling yourself, what do you call, calling yourself Khoi San. I was laughing to look at the colored people calling themselves, especially this guy called Mackenzie, talking about, every land issue must have, talking about land redistribution, the Khoi San must be involved. Look, the Khoi San is an African tribe. They're not the owner of South Africa. The Khoi San are not the owner. They're just one of the African tribe. And guess what? There are more than 3,000 tribes in Africa. More than 3,000 tribes in Africa. Nigeria has got 172 tribes. Kenya has got 45 tribes. Zimbabwe has got 18 tribes. South Africa has got nearly 14 tribes. Botswana has got 6 tribes. You see what I'm saying? Namibia has got nearly 12 tribes. So you don't found one person. You found it all of a sudden you think that is the owner of that land. No. Owners of the Africa are blacks, all of them. Because black people, we didn't put boundaries. All the boundaries you've seen in Africa, they were put by Europeans during the scramble of Africa and the division of Africa among European countries. You know what I'm saying? So the owners of South Africa are black people, period. Nothing called this tribe that are black. That's it. The so-called colored people, you are not necessarily native. You are not indigenous. I'm indigenous. You see, all my parents are black. All my mothers and my grandmothers are black. All my father's grandfather, going way back 3 million years ago, they're all blacks. Colored people, almost half of your parents are actually white. All colored people, half of their parents were white. You see, if you can look at their hair, you see, they don't have native hair like our hair in Africa. Colored people have got long hair, mostly looking like Europeans. You see, so you're not indigenous, you're not Khoi people. Don't fool yourself and think you're Khoi people or San people. No. You're fooling yourself. Like the guy called Mackenzie talking about how, the land distribution, we need the Khoi people to be here. The Khoi people. No. The real Khoi people are not the only natives. You see, there's also the Zulus. There's also the Xhosa. But different tribes were occupying different parts of the country. That's all. You see, so a Khoi San is not a native, because the Khoi people were just occupying part of the south, the Cape Town, a place which was later on named Cape Town. They roamed there. They were just hunting. You know what I'm saying? They were not settling. You see, the Khoi people don't settle. They don't settle. They don't have a particular place where they specialize the settle. They follow the animals. The only reason why they were not, majority of them were actually wiped out by Europeans back in the days. You see, they were almost exterminated The few which were left were females, which were also raped and made babies with European settlers. And those babies, when later on, are the ones we call colored today. You see what I'm saying? Colored people, actually, their forefathers are actually Caucasian white people. They're not necessarily, they were never fathered by black men. Have you ever seen a colored person with a, what they call a colored person with a, have you ever seen a colored person in the continent with a Zulu, an African name? Very few. There is very few. I don't think even they reach 5 or 6. Because 90% of the colored were not fathered by the local males. Or Zulu, or Xhosa, or Sutu, or Venda. You see, this is why all colored people, especially in South Africa, have got European names. All the colored, just look at a colored person. If you want to say a colored person, ask them their surname. Just ask a colored person in South Africa. Just say, what is your surname? Can I see your surname? You'll see all of their surname is Europe. it's European surname. You know what I'm saying? So they're not necessarily native. They're just mixed race children. They're not native. They don't even know themselves. A lot of people are confused if they're born in Africa. They think, if you are born in Africa, you must be native in Africa. No, you're not. You're not native. Natives are those who are born with the same family. You see, someone who's born from the same native people of that particular land. All of the parents must be of the same. You know what I'm saying? Not just one is Chinese, one is black, one is European, one is black. The child born is not native. You see what I'm saying? Where you are born is different from, are you from there? You know what I'm saying? So the colored people, that's the only thing I wanted to say. You are not necessarily native in South Africa. You are mixed. You are not Khoi people. Colored people are not indigenous in South Africa. In Africa, in fact. You see what I'm saying? This is why you have got foreign DNA. You're not native there. You have got foreign DNA. You're different from that guy who was called Julius Malema. Julius Malema is Zulu. All these are done. Those are the real native. Their surnames clearly states out. Their DNA. Colored people in South Africa, your DNA is almost half European. Most of you are 60% European. Just go take your DNA and see yourself if you're colored. If you're a colored person, look at the colored people. Everywhere you go, or in school, wherever you go, ask a colored person, what's your surname? Just ask them this question, what is your surname? A colored person in South Africa, you notice that their surname is European. 99% of the colored people in South Africa, their surnames are European. You know what I'm saying? So they're not native. They don't even know. They're confused because if you're born in Africa, it does not necessarily make you a native. You know what I'm saying? Your fathers could be from overseas. Your father could be from Canada. You see what I'm saying? It was worse, especially for black people. Remember, South Africa was under the apartheid. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of children were not fathered by black men. Most of the children, especially colored people. Colored people are not, they were never fathered by black men. They had black mothers 100 years ago. But the fathers were always Caucasian white men. You know what I'm saying? So as a colored person, you're not native. Don't fool yourself and think that you are a Khoi San. Oh, these colored people talking about, how we are Khoi San. No. The Khoi San don't even number 10,000. The real native Khoi San don't even number 10,000. They're less than that. Okay, their populations were exterminated back in the days. You see, the natives are Zulus, Xhosas, people you see who are 100% black. Not just not the Indians and the Asians, people who are newcomers to the continent. You know what I'm saying? So that's the issue I wanted to talk. That colored people, you are not native. You're wasting your time actually calling yourself native. Wasting your time point blank. You know, it's laughable to see colored persons thinking that they're native. You're not native. Your surname alone is going to your surname alone is going to tell you. Your surname and your DNA is going to speak more. You're not native. Because I've been studying African history 4,000 years. African history for 4,000 years. You know what I'm saying? And I understand that colored people have no clue of Africa. You have no clue of your own history. You know what I'm saying? A lot of colored people in South Africa have no clue of their own history. You're not natives in South Africa. You know what I'm saying? Your forefathers were actually European settlers who mixed with the local females and fathered you. And then later on gave their surnames to the children. And the children today are still carrying the surnames of European settlers. And these children are the ones we call today colored people, or mixed race people, or in other countries they call them biracials, mixed people. You know what I'm saying? In South Africa, we use the word colored. In Zimbabwe, they use the same colored. In Namibia, they use the same colored people. In America, they would call you black. But in reality, who fathered you is where you are. Who fathered you, you take the surname of the father, not the surname of the mother. Children take the surname of their fathers, not their mother. Because the father is the one with the DNA which is going to go to the name of the children. A lot of colored people in South Africa have got European surnames. You know what I'm saying? So you're not native to Africa. Don't fool yourself and think that you are native in South Africa. You're not. You're not even Khoi San. You're not the Khoi people. Most of you colored don't speak Khoi, which is originally Khoi. You don't speak like that. Okay, your fathers are not Khoi men. You know what I'm saying? Khoi men were very tiny. Most Khoi men are actually 5 foot and below, and skinny. Most of them. They're not huge like that guy who's called Mackenzie. So we know each tribe is unique in Africa. You know what I'm saying? But what I wanted to say was to speak about the colored issue. You know, you're not necessarily native in Africa. Colored people, your descendants are Europeans. You're not native. So don't fool yourself and think that you're Khoi people. Or you're Khoi, you're the same people. No. You're fooling yourself. You're just a mixed race, hybrid. You know what I'm saying? But you're not native in South Africa. So don't fool yourself and call yourself native, blah, blah, blah. We have been here more. No. Black people in Africa are not foreign in Africa. All blacks in Africa are not foreign. They belong there. They are both indigenous there. The only thing is that they move from different place to different place long time ago, before European put boundaries. I could live in one place and move to a different region, and then stay there for a few months and move to a different region. Like that. This is how almost all Africans used to do back in the day. Both Africans were hunter-gatherers. Nobody stayed in one place permanently in Africa. Nobody. They were both hunter-gatherers. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I wanted to say about the so-called colored people. They don't even have a clue of who they really are. You know, telling themselves that they are native. They know native colored person in Africa. A mixed race person is not a native in Africa. You're wasting your time. You're fooling yourself. You know, you're fooling yourself. A lot of colored people in South Africa are not even educated. You see, a lot of them, they don't even know who they really are. You know, but check your surname and your DNA. You're not a native person of South Africa. You're wasting your time. I'm more native myself, 100% black. You see, everybody in my family is black. You see what I'm saying? I don't have a foreign DNA in me. You know what I'm saying? So don't fool yourself. That's the issue I wanted to talk. Bye bye.